Hey, what is up? Episode 1. Wow, doing this again. So some of you don't know me. Most of you probably don't know me. My name is Ross Cessna. I used to host a podcast called the Spiritual Phoenix Podcast. It's how I got started in all of this. I actually started it 5 years ago on the day. Um, Doing this one to kind of correct some of the mistakes that I made in how I presented the first one and do some things differently and build a community around it, right? So maybe I should start with saying what I want to do with this podcast first off, and then explain kind of who I am and do somewhat of a backstory, and then explain some of the path forward with everything, right? So, all of that in mind, I'm going to read off a list of stuff that I have written down. It's not going to be super boring. I'm going to make it fun. Don't worry. So the show intends to be upon the following premises: magic, psi phenomenon, and forces beyond our comprehension are real and interact with people regularly. And just to like break this down with some like regular vernacular too, right? Think about it this way. We are humans. We know for fact that like we can't tune into 99% of reality because of the limits of our own perception. So it's like statistically impossible that there's not forces beyond our comprehension. So that means that there's a lot of shit going on that we don't know. Okay. So learning to integrate these experiences into mainstream culture is imperative to the well-being of the individual and the species' long-term survival. That's a really, really big statement there, but I think that that's incredibly true also, right? Because more and more people are having these experiences. These experiences seem to be ways to facilitate growth and change and expansion of the individual. And because our current system views people having these experiences as mental health crises because they don't fit into the modern framework of materialism, it's an issue. And that's actually the next point. Some individuals, often problematic and troubled ones, are selected by spirits and put into a life of hardship that often leads to life-altering crises, right? Some of us are actually chosen to go through these processes to help shepherd other people, which are a lot of the people that are waking up through these things, and to be kind of, it's not a guru or a teacher. Some people go that route, but it's not supposed to be. It's more of like a fellow traveler. And then these crises often bring about psychic changes in a series of events that, while unique to the individual, fit into archetypal themes. And what that means is there's this overlying or underlying theme that can kind of unify all these different experiences, despite the experience occurring in a way that makes sense to the individual. And I think that that's hard to maybe, the right people will get what I'm saying, right? Some of the ways that the universe or whatever these other forces are expressing themselves is ways that seem batshit crazy to most people, but there legitimately is something there in some instances. And there is also, mental illness is also real, so deciphering the two can be challenging. Sharing these experiences with others in a safe and supportive environment can be critical to maintaining a state of mental well-being. As somebody who had these experiences and then was put in the mental health system and then was kind of told to not trust a lot of the things that were like very valid, that was just as disoriented as believing what wasn't real, like when I actually had like real mental health stuff, if that makes sense, because you're throwing off one of your senses, like your sense systems. So learning how to process that and integrate these experiences in a way that where you're grounded and still able to function is super important. And then having a podcast and a community that offers a platform for these voices is necessary and something that I am uniquely suited to do. And here's why. Okay, so for me, a lot of my earlier podcast was really me documenting my journey of getting my life back together after this huge spiritual awakening, spiritual emergency that completely like devastated my entire being, right? The whole podcast is really structured on that. And it begins with me entering 12-step recovery and working on myself and like going through the whole emotional process of becoming a better person, fixing myself, healing, growing, expanding, and then learning how to integrate magic and how working on spiritual stuff increased my magic ability. And while there was a lot of good information and that earlier stuff that I put out, a lot of the perspectives need to be corrected, not because they were necessarily wrong. They didn't have the full picture, and there's a broader context that I had missed. One of the main things for me that has shifted is over the course of the years, I've left 12-step recovery. I began using CBD hemp, and then I've actually recently integrated medical marijuana back into my life. And it has been fundamentally life-changing in how much it has helped me. And it made me realize why I had initially used it. And that's one of the reasons why doing this podcast again is important to me, because I want to, address that aspect of that part of the journey and say that I was wrong in a lot of ways that I presented some of that information, and that there is a appropriate way to use it. And I did mention that, but there was times when I was really a dick about things too. And I needed to correct myself on that and like have some humility about it. Right. Additionally, there's other ideas in there that need to be unpacked and expanded more. And those things need to be fixed just for my own well-being and to clear up some of my own ideas on stuff. And then lastly, I have actually done like support groups and have learned so much about healing and the intersection of personal healing, magic, spirituality, and all of these things, that it would be unfair of me to not offer these back to the community. And while initially this is going to be, the show is going to be more about correcting some of the old issues and catching people who listen to the old show up on what I'm doing now and explaining more about my personal practice and kind of building up a system of metaphysics so we have like common understanding of what the fuck I'm talking about. Once we do that, I want to start getting authors and guests and things on and talking about their experiences. But I do want to also maintain some of the way that I did the original show, which is just riffing off the top of my head about certain topics and ideas that come up and like having a good time doing it and not being super pressured or committed to it, but making it fun and like also getting the community involved and making it about you, right? Because that's what this is actually about. This whole show isn't for me anymore. Like I've done my shit. This is to share that experience, help other people, and to not tell them what to do, because I am by no means a guru. I have authority over on my experience, and even that's questionable at times. But I can't tell you where to go, right? That's the thing about this experience that I think most people miss. And this is one of the things that religion does a great disservice to people, because it tells people that there's this one way, but there's as many ways as there are people, and you have to unlock your own path. But because of these archetypal themes, we can share this in language and find commonality and find ways to navigate it, right? It's going to be a really fun experience. I've learned so much about how to present information, how to interview guests, and I think that we're going to have a really good time. I want to have community members on the show and learn about your experiences. There is already a system of events and like a premium membership, so we can get involved and have like online meetups. We can do some super fun shit. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast, and I look forward to going on this adventure with you. With all of that said, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I will be back in 2 weeks, and I think we're going to unpack kind of what's going on with the magical system and maybe some stuff like that. Anyhow, chat soon.